My name is Daniel Filous. I am the marketing lead for Jira-work-management. And today I wanted to talk to you all about getting work done across distributed teams and show you how we at Atlassian use our suite of work management tools to take work from idea to done. All right, let's kick things off. Let's get a show of hands. How many of y'all work across distributed teams? Okay, great. Most of us, awesome. And how many of you would say it's been smooth sailing? Piece of cake, no problem. Okay, pretty much none of us. Great, you're in the right place. Happy you're here. Before we kick things off, I do have to show you this legal disclaimer. I know we're very much all about reading terms and conditions, so I trust you all will read this very thoroughly. We'll give it another second here, and then we'll kick things off. All right, we all read it? We're good? Scout's honor? Okay, let's do it. Let's face it, working across teams was never easy. Our processes pretty different. The tools we use are different. The words we use are different. And now more than ever, even where we work is different. On a weekly basis, I work across 7 teams in 10 states, 4 countries, and 5 time zones. It makes visibility more difficult, collaboration more difficult, alignment more difficult. And it means that if we want to operate smoothly at scale, we have to be that much more thoughtful about finding ways to connect our processes, our tools, our words, and yes, even where we work. And today you're in luck because I'm going to show you just how we do that at Atlassian. In this session, we're going to walk through how we at Atlassian use tools like Confluence and Trello and Jira-work-management together to take work from idea to done. And we'll touch on some of our work pet peeves and best practices along the way that hopefully you can take back with you for a little more of this and hopefully a little less of this. All right, for this session, we're going to walk through the 4 key phases of a project: ideation, planning, execution, and reporting. And for this project, let's imagine a team working on a new web page launch. It involves teams across the organization, from marketing to design, product, engineering, and more. And now before we get into best practices for each phase, let's first talk about maybe what not to do. And I do apologize in advance, if these bring up some bad memories for you all, or I know for some of you this might hit a little too close to home. Please do not side-eye your coworkers today. This is a safe space for all of us. But let's start with our pet peeves at the ideation phase. First is jumping to solutions without defining goals. And this is one of the most common things that we see from companies. You really can't come up with a solution to a problem that you haven't yet defined. Second is different teams running separate ideation sessions to solve the same problem. Third is not offering async ways to provide input. In a distributed world, working across teams and time zones and calendars, means it's going to be really tough to get everyone in the same virtual room. You're going to see stronger outcomes and really higher team satisfaction when you give everyone an opportunity to contribute even when they're not there. And lastly is not documenting your discussions, ideas, decisions, and actions. Without documenting throughout the entire ideation process, you really make it harder on yourself, the teams working with you on the project, and other teams looking to learn from you or just provide additional feedback to your thinking as you go. All right, let's talk about how we approach ideation at Atlassian. So when we kick off a project, no matter how simple or complex, we always start by documenting the why, defining the customer and goals and the problem, all in a project poster. And why do we do this? Well, if we don't understand the problem and have a clear definition for what success looks like, we're really just wasting our time trying to come up with solutions. And so for a lot of people, not taking this first step, a big reason for that is just not knowing what questions to ask or how to get started. And so that's why we always kick off the ideation phase at Atlassian by using a project poster template in Confluence. Templates not only make this part of ideation simpler, but they really help you turn it into a repeatable process that keeps things consistent across the company. And it's this consistency that's not only going to unlock scale for you and your teams, but it's going to improve satisfaction in teams, knowing they're spending time on the right questions and really giving them confidence in their ways of working, ultimately knowing that they're going to be driving to a better result. So now with our project poster for our web page complete in Confluence, we're ready to get to the fun stuff. We're ready to brainstorm. When we're brainstorming, we found that it's best to use a tool that's low friction, that's visual, that's flexible, and that can be used both synchronously and asynchronously. And so that's why we choose to brainstorm in Trello. Trello acts as our virtual whiteboard, where multiple remote teams can hop on a video call together and easily add and organize and engage with ideas in real time. And you never know, as you're brainstorming, ideating, where inspiration is going to come from. And so what's great about Trello is you can easily bring in visuals and documents from other tools like Figma and Miro and Confluence. And using Trello not only makes it easy to add and organize ideas, but it gives everyone a voice, even those who aren't there. And when you're working across multiple distributed teams and time zones, it's really important to give teams the flexibility to engage in healthy ways. No one wants to stay up till 10 p.m. for a late night design meeting, documenting and debating over, how an image looks on a web page. And what's great about Trello is it makes it possible for teammates who aren't able to attend the session to leave comments and vote on ideas asynchronously so that everyone has the opportunity to contribute. And here's where I start to get excited, where we really start to unlock the power of our connected tools. So after we've narrowed and aligned on our ideas in Trello, we can actually embed that Trello board back into our original project poster in Confluence. So now we have this living document that's visible and probably more importantly accessible to the entire organization in one place, so any team, anywhere, at any time can see the entire history of our thinking, from the problem to our goals to the solution that we ended up deciding on. And now at this point, even other teams that you might have never even thought to share this with can easily contribute feedback on our approach, learnings from similar things that they've done, or just cheer us on with some fire emojis. I'm absolutely okay with that too. I think this comment alone from MCB on my last project poster had me hyped. I was doing this. And I think what I want to get across is, sharing your thinking and ideas early and often, not just with your immediate teams, but the entire organization, is only going to benefit you and lead to stronger solutions in the long run. All right, so our ideas are in. Now it's time to move to the planning phase. And again, before we get into best practices, here are a few of our pet peeves when planning. First, not breaking down large streams of work into actionable tasks. Second is assigning multiple owners to a single task. Now I get asked this all the time, hey Daniel, can we assign multiple owners to a task in Jira? And I'll say this, that years and years of working with teams has taught me that making two people responsible for a piece of work is pretty much as good as making no one responsible for that piece of work. And so I would say that over and over again, we've seen successful projects really leave little to no room for ambiguity, especially when it comes to ownership of work. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't clarify dependent teams and contributors, but owners of work really should be singular. Third is not giving dependent teams complete information and clear requirements on work you assign. Fourth is tasks without deadlines. I mean, we're all human here. I know for myself, if there's not a due date assigned to it, good luck seeing that work completed on time. Fifth, not defining dependencies. And last is when teams don't take capacity into consideration when assigning work. At the planning stage, you really need to make sure that you understand the workload, not only of the people on your teams, but on the teams that you're working with. And you really don't want to put yourself in a situation where you have to make last-minute trade-offs because one person is across far too many work streams. All right, sorry, I need to take a deep breath. We clearly had a lot of pet peeves at that planning phase here, but hopefully after today, we'll start to see less and less of them. When we kick off the planning phase at Atlassian, we find that doing this together with your functional teams is most effective. And so to do this, we move from ideating in Trello to putting our formal plans together in Jira-work-management. And so through multiplayer mode and Jira-work-management, we can actually collaborate in real time as a team to discuss and break down these large streams of work into much more actionable tasks in our list view. We can assign ownership, align on due dates, and really just fill out any other important details of the task really simply, all in a click, all in line. And Jira-work-management is the first and only project management tool to offer real-time collaborative editing, which really gives you that feeling of teamwork no matter where you work. And for people on your team who aren't able to be there during that planning session, they can easily collaborate with you asynchronously as well in Jira-work-management by adding comments or updating tasks when it works for them. And as the team aligns on the details of our tasks in the list view, we can easily switch to the calendar view and see how everything fits in within our schedule. Or we can use a timeline view to create dependencies so that we can make sure that tasks are delivered on budget and on time. And if we're unsure of how to distribute that work across the team, we can easily check out the summary page of our project and understand team capacity and reallocate work, as we need it. And as we're planning, we really want to keep things as auditable and consistent and efficient as possible. And so to do that, we really try to keep requests with dependent teams off of Slack or Microsoft Teams or email and use forms and Jira-work-management instead. I think we've all experienced the struggle of getting assigned work from another team that's missing some pretty important information for you to get the job done. And that just leaves you either going back and forth with them for days, or you probably just throw your hands up and say, forget it, I'm just going to go try and figure this out myself. And we save ourselves that headache at Atlassian by using forms and Jira-work-management instead. And forms allow you to create required fields so that teams give you exactly the information that you need to complete the work. 2, they allow for all requests to go through a repeatable workflow. And 3, forms make it possible for other teams to track the status of their requests with you, collaborate on them with you, all in one place. So, going back to our original web page launch example, here's how marketing might submit a form to the design team to request new assets for that new web page we're building. The design team has required fields for marketing to fill out and describe what they want, to include attachments for things like content or inspiration, and when it's expected to be done. And you can include any sort of custom field that you want in a Jira-work-management form to make sure that you're collecting all the information you need to complete the work. And then once a design form is submitted, it gets added as a task on the design team's project in Jira-work-management, so I can go through the design team's specific workflow for that exact request type. And with workflows and Jira-work-management, each team is able to have their own ways of working, really without sacrificing connectivity to other teams, which is so important, especially when you're working on complex cross-functional projects. Okay, now that the planning for the web page is complete, it's time to move to the execution phase. And where would we be without bringing in our best friend Drake here for some pet peeves? Okay, first is not providing visibility into your work. This one's pretty straightforward. One of the biggest challenges that a lot of distributed teams have. Second is not communicating status and risk. When teams aren't working in close proximity, it's really easy to under-communicate, especially when it comes to updates around progress, or maybe more importantly, when progress isn't being made. And last is forcing teams into a single tool or way of working. At Atlassian, when we move to the execution phase of a project, we find that it's essential to allow teams to work in the tools that are right for them. I'll say it again, it's essential to allow teams to work in the tools that are right for them. But while that work happens in another tool, we really need to make that work visible and accessible to other teams in the organization. It's about working differently together. And with Jira-work-management, we make that a piece of cake. So going back to our web page launch, Jira makes it easy to get visibility into work as it's happening across every team, no matter if it's a business team or a software team. We can open up advanced roadmaps and see how each team is tracking on our web page launch, for example. We can see the dependencies that exist and when the work is expected to be done. If we click into one of these connecting lines here, we can see the dependency between design and marketing. In this case, design is blocked on the web page until marketing submits the content. And just knowing this dependency exists, design is probably anxious, saying, hey, when is marketing going to be done with this project? Constantly checking back in, but instead of forcing teams to have to constantly check back in on status, which can be really tiring, we can use automation to make their life a little bit simpler. So to keep that web page launch moving quickly, we can set up an automation so that when the marketing task status changes to done, send a Slack message to the design channel that the content is ready with a direct link to it in Confluence. This is perfect, not only when you're working across teams internally, but externally as well. You can imagine if you're working with a third-party contractor or agency, automations like this give them a single place to go to stay informed and aligned without needing to track down information from different sets of places or different people. And since Jira-work-management is built on the Jira platform, you can also connect work across Jira-work-management and Jira software so your business teams and software teams always stay in sync. So if you're launching a new web page, for example, you can set up an automation so that when the design task is finished in Jira-work-management, you can change the status of the engineering task in Jira software from waiting for design to ready to build. And as simple as some of these scenarios may seem, every time we have to stop and just stop what we're doing to take care of these administrative tasks like handoffs or status alignment, the whole process really hits a wall. And these are the things that when they happen over and over again, really start to add wear and tear to distributed teams and then ultimately start to impact results. But fortunately, with Jira-work-management's no-code automation builder, anyone on the team can easily set up automations in minutes, spending a lot less time on those administrative tasks and more time doing the work that they actually enjoy. And speaking of the work, Jira-work-management makes it possible for stakeholders to actually see other teams' work, even when it's happening in another tool. And this is so valuable because it means that as a stakeholder, you have all the context you need in one place without needing to track down that work somewhere else. And then as the person delivering the work, you don't need to waste time constantly going back to the stakeholder to provide them with updates. And the Atlassian platform makes this all possible with something called embedded smartlinks. And through embedded smartlinks, the design team can share their designs by embedding a Figma file directly into the Jira-work-management task, giving marketing a real-time window into the designs that are happening in Figma. So that means, as a marketer, no more sifting through long lists of screenshots trying to figure out, hey, which one is the most up to date. And now without leaving the task as well, I can collaborate with my designers on these designs and these assets. We can leave comments to discuss them and go back and forth. We can even approve those designs from directly within Jira-work-management and maybe even kick off an automation to keep that work moving quickly. And this is possible not only with Figma, but with other tools too, like Google Drive and Miro and more. So whether you're in design or finance or marketing or ops, you're going to save a ton of time. I think more importantly, context switching, knowing you can work in the tool that's right for you without sacrificing the visibility for other teams. And then once that page is launched, a lot of people might be like, okay, great, we're ready to go, work is done, page is live, high five. But, not so fast. Let's talk about the last and equally important phase of a project, reporting. And as always, let's bring it back to Drake, talk about some of our pet peeves. First, no single source of truth for the project. Second, is not analyzing the outcome and defining actions based on learnings. I can't tell you how many times I've heard, hey, I know we launched a thing a couple months ago. Does anyone remember what the results were? Sometimes I think we're so focused on delivering the work that we don't actually take the time to look back, evaluate the results, use that learning to take our future work to the next level. Third is not sharing results and learnings to the rest of the org. You did the work, share it. Good or bad, these are the learnings that help your organization grow, especially distributed teams, who if they learn about the results of your project can either avoid missteps or use it as a way to prioritize their own projects. And last but not least is not celebrating your wins. At Atlassian, with every project we deliver, we can't consider it complete until we report it on the results. This doesn't mean you need a data scientist to run a post analysis on every project that you do, but you should always look back to that project poster in Confluence, review your original measures for success, and report on how the results of your project stacked up. I mean, for me personally, understanding how close we came to that initial hypothesis is almost as valuable as understanding that total impact of our project. And this is because it gives us this log that we can look back to better help us prioritize projects in the future. We really want to get to a place where our hypotheses are more right than they're wrong. And this takes both time and a willingness to go through this process. But the benefits are that over time you're going to get better and better with your estimates, increasing the likelihood that your teams make the right decision when deciding what projects to prioritize next. So step one is to analyze the results of your project. Step two, which I think happens far too infrequently, especially with distributed teams, is to take that analysis, summarize it in one place in a consumable way, and share it. We're all busy people. We don't have time to go track down all the different documents that were associated with your project. Make it easy on your peers and executive teams by summarizing your project, the outcome, your learnings, and recommendations in a single place. At Atlassian, we do this in Confluence, embedding our Trello board so people can see how things started, embedding our Jira-work-management timeline so people can see how we executed, and use tables or embedded Google Sheets so we can see and understand the results. Over time, these project summaries are going to add to this huge, growing library of documents and learnings that are going to be so valuable to everyone in your organization, whether they're on day 10 or year 10. And these pages aren't only where you share knowledge and learnings with the rest of the organization, but they're also the place to celebrate your wins and recognize the people who contributed to your projects to make them a success. So end your projects by tagging everyone who helped out and really make them feel recognized. Working across distributed teams can feel lonely. I know for a lot of you, there's likely been plenty of times where you took the time to contribute to a project and probably felt like that effort was forgotten about, or maybe never documented in a way that could be recognized by others. And what I love so much about Confluence is it gives you the ability to champion those who helped you with your projects, big or small. And by shouting them out on your page, you give an opportunity for everyone across the company to recognize their efforts as well. So now, when we share out that Confluence page, summarizing the big success of our launch with everyone tagged who contributed, people from across the company can show their support with reactions and GIFs and comments so we can celebrate as a company, as one team. And that's a sneak peek into how we get shit done across teams and tools at Atlassian. And I wouldn't be living up to this session if I didn't follow through on tracking my own measures for success today. In fact, here's actually a real part of my project poster for today's session with what I would hope that you were able to take away. So my objective was to show how using Jira-work-management, Confluence, and Trello together can help distributed teams collaborate seamlessly to deliver on common but complex projects. And we're a distributed team ourselves, so I want to make sure I celebrate and champion those who helped me with this session today. So big thank you to Krista and Abby and Javi and Judy. Now, help me report back on the outcome of this session to my teams by filling out this one-question survey. I told you a project is not complete until we make sure we report back on the results. So I want to know if you're able to learn at least one way to use Atlassian tools to make work across your distributed teams more effective. So please, let's take a moment, if you can, get those phones out, stretch and reach, try to get that image. I know it's, we're a couple years into scanning QR codes these days, so we're getting a little bit better. Otherwise, thank you everyone for your time. One thing I didn't get to have enough time to talk about is another product that we use a ton at Atlassian, which is a product called Atlas. We use it extensively throughout the execution and learning phase. There's going to be an awesome session later today led by Matt Hodges that I highly recommend you check out. All right, thank you. We'll open it up to questions. Feel free to raise your hand if you got any. Yes. Someone's coming down for you.
Thank you. As an organization, we've recently had to migrate to work management from Trello. Had to do with licensing, and I understand that you guys are resolving that with a subscription in the forthcoming months. However, given what we're up against, given the situation, why would why would we use Trello if work management can be created in a similar way to function the same? Or is that just something that companies that are in situations like ours should just do automatically if we can't use both, or if we don't have licenses to use both?
Yeah, so you definitely can accomplish different things in different ways. There's absolutely ways to do a lot of, to accomplish a lot of things with Trello and doing a lot of those similar things in Jira-work-management, but there's definitely areas where both of these tools serve uniquely well. So Trello in particular is amazing for anything that is synchronous. So we're talking retrospectives or ideation and brainstorming. These are things that Jira-work-management isn't as well set up for. Jira-work-management is much more structured. Everything requires statuses, whereas Trello can be really as flexible in anything as you wanted. And so I would say that you're going to get the most value by using both tools, but you absolutely can accomplish the majority of your work using one or the other. It really just depends on your company and organization and style of working. We've seen both products work very successfully across different companies at different sizes. So I would say you're going to get the most value when you use both, but there's absolutely value in using one or the other for their own ways. Other questions? Don't be shy, everybody. Yes.
With teams using Trello and work management, or does Atlassian struggle having visibility with teams in Trello if most of the teams are in Jira? And a second question is, as I know that Atlassian over the years has acquired companies and new teams have joined. Do you find that, what is the methodology with onboarding organizations into using these tools, and how do you direct them?
Yeah. So the first question in terms of visibility, so what I would say is things like embedded smartlinks really improve that visibility. And so now actually what you can do is if you were to just paste a Jira work management task into Trello, you can see all of that work. We also are working on more things like bidirectional sync, so that as you make changes in Trello, you can see those changes appear in Jira work management and vice versa. But even today, you can already set up automations where I could say like, hey, let me move a card in Trello into a certain list, and that can kick off an automation to create tasks in Jira work management. So we've done that internally as well. So as we're ideating, we might say, okay, dedicate this list at the end of Trello for tasks that we want to start, just getting the process rolling in Jira work management. So that gives us this really seamless path of moving from that ideation phase into the planning phase, where we've got something that's really flexible, we can move things around, and then great, now it's shipped off into Jira work management. So there's definitely already a lot of ways to get visibility bidirectionally, but it's also an area that we're definitely working on some more as well. And then in terms of onboarding teams, a lot of it is having discussions with them about how they work. I think for some companies, they say, hey, we really want this flexibility. Our teams don't want something as structured, or maybe we don't have as many dependencies across our teams, and therefore, we can totally utilize a tool like Trello. And then for a lot of teams is saying, hey, we really need both. No matter how big or small you are, there's always room and need for ideation and brainstorming and having that flexible tool that people can use. And then there's also, a big need for something that has that's more status driven, that's more complex and has dependencies like a Jira work management. And so kind of again, we definitely recommend both, but we really try to work with companies and organizations to try to understand, how do you work? How do your teams like to work? We don't want to be too prescriptive with what we offer, but we do want to acknowledge, what are some of the stronger benefits that each tool provides. We got one more minute. Any other questions we have? Otherwise, you can absolutely find me. I'll be around later today if you have any other questions about Jira work management, Atlassian-Together, whatever you got. Happy to answer for it. All right. Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. I really appreciate the time. Have a great rest of your night.